Hey gang, it's Bryan from FXBilliards. Today we're going to talk about the #1 mistakes that players make when they have ball in hand. This doesn't happen too often, but it is something that you should look out for. We are playing 9-ball in this situation. We are on the 1 ball, obviously. Our 1 is there, our 2 is there, our 3 and 4 are both clustered up. By the way, there's no shot there. Unless you break the clusters up, you can't play the 3, and unless you break the clusters up, you can't play the 3 and get on the 4. How many players are shooting that 1 ball in, and they shoot the 2 ball in, and then what do? They give their opponent the biggest favor ever and break up this cluster. Major, major rookie mistake. One of the things you could do here, you could play a safety right off of the 1. Depending on who you're playing, you decide how you want to play this. You could even take your ball in hand and fix this cluster and bait your opponent into playing the 2 and then breaking this cluster up because he's so worried about giving you ball in hand, he's going to break up the cluster for you. So think these things out, guys. Use your ball in hand at times to play a safety or to bait someone into clearing up some of these obstacles for you. The game could be 8-ball or 9-ball. You have ball in hand. You know enough about solving problems to take this cue ball and play the 2. But what do? You put the ball here and you shoot it straight in. Why? Because everybody wants to put the ball in the pocket and they're worried about, oh, I don't want to miss with the ball in hand, look at me. In the meantime, you've taken a straight in shot and left the cue ball up against the rail. I see this constantly. You have ball in hand, you need to give yourself an angle on this shot. Do not leave yourself up against the rail on these shots. You will never get from that 3 to the 7 if you do manage to make the 3. So you have to just roll it in. It's not that much more difficult a shot. You roll it in, now your cue ball is out here. Guess what? You can do anything you want to do to get on that 7. You can draw it back here. You have enough room. You can stun it and just let it move over. Anything you want to do to get on that 7 will work from here, where before you're straight in and you left yourself on the rail. Players got ball in hand, particularly on a 9-foot table. Got ball in hand. This is good. This is great. You got stop, stop, out, right? You got ball in hand. It's league night. You put your ball in hand there, and then you come over here, and I see this. Why are you doing gymnastics on the table? Because you're trying to get as straight a shot, as easy a shot as possible, but you're bending yourself all the way over the table. I've seen guys with ball in hand. They've got one leg up on the table. They're standing on one leg. All they need to do is shoot a stop shot. Put this ball here and shoot the same shot. The other problem with this is if you're reaching down table for a shot just so you can get a little bit closer to that ball, there are things you cannot do to the cue ball, at least not as well anymore. If you have to shoot a follow or a stop or whatever the case is, you have made not just making the shot more difficult, but putting the English or the stop or the follow, whatever spin you need to put on the ball, you made all of that more difficult too. You got ball in hand. There's your 8-ball. You're in great shape, right? All you have to do is make this 3 and you can get on the 8. You want to get a little greedy? You put the cue ball there with the anticipation that you're going to come off of this rail and you're still going to be on the 8. Okay, I'm all for greedy. I'm a very aggressive player. But is that what happens? No. I don't know what the true stats are, but in my world, my observation, about 75 or 80% of intermediate players hit the ball too hard. What does that mean? It means you don't get on that 8. What do? You roll right past it because you don't have perfect speed on it. Guess what? Pro players don't have perfect speed either. I know it looks like it very often, but they don't have perfect speed on every shot. So what do you do here to ensure that your speed is not going to matter on this shot? We already talked about using the rails for position. Guess what happens if I give myself this angle and I shoot it that way? Every inch this ball rolls, it gets easier. I can overshoot the hell out of it and end up right there with a straight-in shot. I can undershoot the hell out of it and end up there with a straight-in shot. Here's the situation. You are playing 8-ball. You've got the 2 at that end of the table, and you've got the 7 at this end of the table. And you have decided that that 2 is going to be your key ball. Okay, I'm with you. Not a bad key ball. It's at the same end of the table as the 8-ball. Those of you who don't know what the key ball is, it is the ball that we're going to shoot, that we plan on shooting right before the 8-ball. It's very important. That's why it's called the key ball. So you have ball in hand and you know you need to get on that 2-ball. Here's the mistake players make. They take their ball in hand and they shoot a shot that will get them down table to get on this 2-ball. So the shot looks like this. There's your mistake. You are playing one of the best safeties you played all day. Okay? You cannot get to the 2-ball now. Why? Because you had all of the room in the world on this side of the 2-ball, but you played it on that side because it was simple. Just because you can go straight up the table doesn't mean you do it. Play the shot that's going to avoid this traffic and you get to run out. One of the most overlooked things with ball in hand is multi-rail position. There's a couple things we can do to get from this 6-2 to 1. We could put our cue ball here, shoot a follow shot, and have an easy shot on that 1-ball. The other thing you could do, you could shoot a draw shot. You could give yourself this angle, draw the cue ball down table, and now play position on that 1. Okay? I shoot that draw shot as well as anyone, but I'm not always going to stop the cue ball out here. I will end up here from time to time, and not much I could do about it. Also, you may have a situation that looks like this. What can you do here? You have ball in hand. You could shoot here, come off of this rail and this rail, and have a nice angle on that 1-ball. The other thing you could do is just simply go off of these 2 rails, come down here, almost zero chance that you're going to scratch. This is high right-hand English. We come over here, and we can get as straight or as much of an angle as we want on this 1. As long as we're not straight in, we can pop this off the rail, come out for the 8-ball, and it's a wrap. And those of you who say, well, you could have ended up behind that 14-ball. Of course I could have. The other shot would have put me behind the 14 as well. You still have to play position from the 1 to the 8, but don't waste your ball in hand by trying to do something that is going to take a lot of control away from you. Let's look at something else. Here's one for the draw for show, follow for dough people. Draw for show, follow for dough. Okay, one of the 5 stupidest expressions that I've heard in the last 30 years for pool. For reasons I don't need to get into, advanced players know why it's silly. But the bottom line is the draw shot is just as important, if not more important, than the follow shot. But there are times that it is misused. So often I see players with ball in hand, they take their ball in hand, especially somebody who just learned their draw shot, they put it right there with the anticipation that they're going to get on this 7-ball to come down table for this 8. So they shoot a shot that does not look like this. This would be perfect. Yes, I can get down table with a nice follow shot here to play the 8. So that would not be bad use of ball in hand for me if I'm going to get perfectly straight on this shot. But what's going to happen to the same player who doesn't know any better? He's not going to get perfect on that 7-ball. There's a number of things that are probably going to happen. I'm not picking on you. It's just the truth. You're either going to draw back, bounce off this rail too much where you don't have a shot anymore on the 7-ball. You're not going to draw back enough. There's so many bad things that can happen. Some of you might draw back and hit the 7-ball. Why put yourself in that position? Follow. You'll have a lot more control over the cue ball, regardless of your rank. It's a lot easier to leave this ball where you're going to have a straight shot down table than if you try to draw it. Stop drawing with ball in hand when you have an opportunity to shoot a follow shot. Before we get to number 1, the second most common mistake, the second worst mistake you make with ball in hand is playing a bad pattern. We are on the solid balls. The 8 ball is down here. We got 7, 2, 3. All we need to do is get down here for the 8. What would be a good pattern? Those of you that recognize the 3 as a very good key ball, you're probably thinking 7, 2, 3, come down here and get on the 8. Well, here's the problem. When balls are parallel like this, you need to do something good to get from that 7 to that 2, especially get from the 7 to the 2 in a way that you can play the 3 and come down here. I know it looks easy. It does look easy to advanced players and high intermediate players, but it's not an easy layout. So some people are going to play the 2, 3, and then the 7. You got 3 balls you could shoot in any order. So there's 9 different ways you could play this as far as what order you shot the balls in. And then there's 1,000 ways you could play those 9 different patterns. But you need to have an idea. Don't just take your ball in hand and start shooting balls off. I swear, there's so many players that are going to give themselves a shot on that 7 and be done. Nothing else is going to happen. You see it on league night, right? He's got the 7, he shoots the 7 in. He finds that as the most difficult shot. Even worse, he shoots the 3 ball in to get on the 7, but never gets on the 2. And if he does get on the 2 because he got lucky, he can't get back down here for this ball. So before you shoot these, you've got to have an idea how you're going to play them. That's why we put out the videos. Are you out from here? Because of situations like this. Now, I'm going to get a little advanced on this run out, but this is just one of 9 different orders I could play the balls, and one of tens of thousands of ways you could go about playing them. So I'm going to play the 7, knowing that if I draw off the 7, or even decide to go around the table, I've got all this daylight where I'm on the 8 ball, so the 3 does not need to be my key ball just because it looks pretty sitting there and giving me an automatic position on this 8. So what if I play a stop shot here, and now I roll into 3 and get myself not just relatively straight on the 7 ball, but in a way that I don't have to reach, right? I could have drew it back and had a straighter shot on the 3 and been up there on the 7 and then had to reach down table to get to that 7. But now, not only am I perfectly straight, but I can shoot a draw shot straight back, and I'm going to be on the 8 ball. All right, that's my pattern. Does not mean it's your pattern. But the main mistake is don't go into it without having a pattern in mind, and one that you can visualize and get on without having to do anything spectacular. Let's look at the number 1 mistake players make. Number 1. Welcome to number 1. Those of you who stuck around, probably legit pool players, because the bangers, they can't make it through 10 shots. Here we are on the solid balls. The number 1 mistake that players make when they have ball in hand is not solving problems. I don't care what your problem is. It might be a ball that's on the rail. It might be a ball that is in a spot where you can only get to it from certain places. But you've got to solve your problems when you have ball in hand. Here's our problem. We got balls that are clustered up that don't go anywhere. Why? Because the 5 blocks to 2, the 7 blocks to 4. We need to break up that cluster, or at least get these balls out of the way. Now, it would be enough, and this is what happens. I'm sorry, guys, but this is what happens. You tell me you were going to do something that you are a long shot to do. I know I'm a long shot to do it, but a lot of people they're living in a fantasy world where they play perfect position, and if you ask them what's the number 1 thing they want to work on, it's their position play. In a fantasy world, I play the 5, and I ultimately get perfect position on this 2 so that I can play the 2 here because this is the pocket that is blocking. Okay, that works, maybe, but I've got ball in hand. What should I do? I should solve this problem right now. There's a number of ways to get on it. I could play the 5 and shoot a nice draw shot with English and come here and break these up. That's one way I could break up this cluster. So what do? I take a shot at it, and I do it right now. Why? Because I'm not perfect. I'm not always going to be able to make that shot. If I fail with that nice little shot, and a lot of people don't have that shot, okay, you might want to come off of 2 rails and try to hit it that way. If you do that and you fail, let's see what happens. We missed our cluster, but guess what we do? We have 2 more opportunities to break them up, and I've gotten the ball out of the way. So even though I didn't anticipate that I would be able to get perfect on that 2 ball, I can now play my 1 ball, stun it over, and have a shot, a legitimate shot, on playing the 2 here and being out. Why? Because I worked on my cluster, my problem shot, from the jump. Don't tell me you were going to get to it. I used to say to people on my team all the time, well, what were you going to do about that 2 ball? I was going to get to it. How about you get to it right now? Okay, how about you open up your pocket and you get to it while you have ball in hand, instead of imagining that you got Shane-like position play and you're going to get on it later on. No, fix your problems. That's the #1 issue when people have ball in hand, is they're not solving their problems that they have on the table and solving them early. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I know you learned something today. Give us a thumbs up, hit me in the comments, and let me know if there's any issues with ball in hand that I didn't cover that you want to mention. Maybe we'll bring them up in another video.
Oh, are we on the air?